my face black and green.
Paint my face black and green.
Just want to take a look here. You can see my RCV axles, and then you can see my RCV outer seals that go into the tube. So this is one of those flat Zerk fittings right there that takes the same needle type of valve stem to apply the grease into the seal itself that rubs up against the actual shaft. So I'm going to be adding some grease to that this morning on both sides. It's been a little while. I'll be greasing the CVs themselves, and then of course the drag link and the tie rods up front. So a little bit of maintenance this morning. And for the RCV stuff, I actually use their synthetic grease that they sell. So that's what's going to go in there, and then of course in the CV underneath this boot. One more thought on that Zerk fitting on the outer seal. It threads in kind of far. In my experience, it's very difficult to get the grease through it because it's almost like it goes in too far. So I generally put my needle nose on it, back it off a turn and a half, and then the grease is able to flow right through it and get into the seal itself. Then I tighten it back down with some needle nose, just snug, and then clean up the grease. So I just applied the grease in there, the RCV grease. That's good to go. All right, I just greased the drag link here at the pitman arm. A few shots of grease. That comes down to the steering knuckle over here. I have to actually turn the steering for me to access this grease fitting on the Steer Smart's drag link. And then of course the tie rod, I was able to get that. A few shots of grease into that. And of course that goes across to the other knuckle, and that's all greased up there. So in regards to greasing the CV joint now on the RCV axles, normally I would just take the center cap off of the rim on the outside and then use that needle grease fitting and grease it from there. But today I'm going to be installing the spacer rings so that my wheels will be hub centric rather than lug centric. So I'm going to pull these wheels off, put the spacer rings on, and then of course that RCV axle and the grease fitting for it will be exposed, and I'll be able to grease both sides. So that's what's going on today. Okay, if you look at this rim, you can see inside the rim is beveled. And obviously the conical shape on the lug nut, when the rim is lug centered, all the weight goes on the studs, and then as you tighten up each individual lug nut, because it's tapered, it centers it on the 5 lugs. So what I'll be doing is putting in spacer rings that go on the hub and fit perfectly inside the bore size. So that's what's taking place. All right, what's going on here? These plastic pieces are machined to fit perfectly over my hub and then fill the gap to the bore of my new ATX slab wheels. So the JK hub is 71.5 millimeters. That's this diameter right here. I'll clean this off nicely with some brake cleaner and a rag. Then this will press over this nice and easy by hand, and then it fills the gap to the bore of the wheel. Now I'm going to go over and show you the inside bore of the wheel. Okay, looking at the inside of the ATX wheel, this is the bore size right here, okay? Manufacturers tend to make them a little on the larger side because they can fit a wide variety of different axles and so forth. So this measures 78.3 millimeters. So the OD, the outside diameter of this ring, is machined, so it fits beautifully inside there like that. And then the ID, the inside diameter, is the 71.5, which you can see on the print right there. So I use these on my Mickey Thompsons. I absolutely love them. Obviously, that's a different size, or I would have been reusing them. So I had these, I bought these from a company in Texas. They're $20 for 4 of them. I find they last really, really well. You can even silicone them on the hubs if you want, or silicone them inside the wheels. I prefer to have them on the hubs. And $20, you can get them made in aluminum if that's what you want. I think maybe for about $100 or $120. But I much rather prefer the wheel to be hub-centered rather than lug-centered, where the weight of the wheel at first starts on the lugs, and then I have to kind of wrestle the weight of the wheel and tire to lift it up to get the lug nut started, and then the taper on the lug nut ends up centering the wheel. So you end up with a lug-centered wheel rather than a hub-centric wheel. And in my research, it's better to be hub-centric. So some people would say, that's just ticky-tack, but I think it's really good. And for $20, this is a no-brainer for me. And I had great success on my last set of wheels, and I definitely wanted them for these ATX slabs. There's the ring, fits beautifully, 71.5 on the ID, fits right on there beautifully. And now the rim will fit right on this beautifully. And once it goes on, all my studs coming off the unit bearing that are pressed in there will be centered perfectly inside the holes on the rim, and I'll have a hub-centric wheel. So small little task, but a lot of people are confused about these things. And for $20, geez, how can you go wrong, really? All right, this is the end of the RCV axle. And believe it or not, right there is a grease fitting. So what I'll be doing is putting my needle fitting from my grease gun and putting in about 3 or 4 shots of the RCV synthetic grease. That's their grease that they recommend for the CV joint. So I'll be doing both sides. Okay, so I have the fronts done. The spacer rings are on, and I greased the RCV axles. I just removed my first rear wheel, and you can see there the carbon off-road chromoly rear axles. So I'm going to put the spacer ring on there. Beautiful. Now we'll put the wheel back on and finish up the last one. So the Jeep maintenance, all these crazy little things that need to be done to stay on top of the vehicle, we're making some great progress. Get a little something more done each day. All right, Recon Jeeper out.